Hi there, and welcome to this month's practice clinic. I'm Graham Fitch, and we at the Online Academy do this once a month where subscribers send in practice-related questions and I address them here. So we have a few questions here from Michael, who's asking about music theory. And we've got also questions on Ravel and Granados, and what else have we got today? Yes, thumb under or thumb over in scales and arpeggios. So let's kick off with Michael's question here. He says, I'm interested in music theory. I've passed ABRSM grade 5 and studied up to grade 8, that's theory, without taking the exams. I've recently started studying Schenkerian Analysis. It's complex, and what I wonder is how useful it will be to help me understand music compositions and indeed to help me write my own compositions. Okay, so Schenkerian Analysis is a very advanced type of analysis. I think it would be wonderful for anybody to do it when the time is right. You wouldn't want to do it when you're sort of just beginning. But maybe as a follow-on from the ABRSM grade 8 theory, why not give it a go and have a look at it? I mean, there are plenty of tutorials on YouTube that you could have a look at to start with to whet your appetite for it before maybe investing in a course or textbooks on the subject. But it, as I say, pretty heavy duty and not a walk in the park, but absolutely highly recommended, of course. What I'm going to do with this question for the purposes of this clinic is just to show you various other ways that we could use analysis in a freer way, in a more personal way, whatever it is that we notice. And I've come to call this PPR, personalized pattern recognition, which embraces the macro level of musical structure as well as the micro levels that help performers. That's really what I'm into, is helping performers to learn pieces with appreciation, with understanding, with a little depth. So I've chosen here Haydn Sonata Hoboken XV123 from the year 1773 in the key of F major. We're just going to look at the exposition here. A sonata form follows a recipe, which is the opening section will be what's known as the first subject in the home key. It kind of establishes the home key. Then we get a little detour into the dominant key via a bridge passage. That is kind of a way of linking the two sections together. It's often where really interesting things start to happen. And then the second subject in a major key sonata anyway is going to be in the dominant. So in this case in the key of C major. And then usually the second subject is longer than the first subject, and it could contain more than one idea, contain several ideas. Then we have a big cadence in the dominant key and then a repeat sign that tells us to do it all again. And then we get our development section where the composer heads back from the dominant key to the home key, usually via the scenic route, through a bunch of different keys, noodling with the material that they've given us already and showing us how fine a composer they are, before we reach the recapitulation, which is where we get the home music of the first section, but all in the home key, in this case the key of F major. So I'm only going to look at the exposition now because otherwise I'll be here for too long. And I'm going to just show you on the macro level first those various structural points. So opening first subject, key of F. Bridge. second subject. Feel that arrival, that celebration of C major when we get to the end of the section. So I pointed out the first subject, the little bridge that takes us from the tonic key to the dominant key. It's actually quite interesting what Haydn does there. And then the second theme, which takes us through to the end, which features quite a lot of fast demi-semiquavers in this particular sonata. So now let me break it down a little bit, and I'm going to look now at the micro level of this, in some detail maybe. Let's see how much detail. Well, the very beginning features a broken triad, the tonic triad, broken from the top to bottom. Chord 1, 5, 1. Now I hear chord 4 there, chord 4 to 1. It's subtle because there isn't a bass note. If he'd written that, it would have been clearer, but he's implied. And then a little tail. And there's a nice appoggiatura, expressive appoggiatura there, a note that leans against the harmony. And again, it's great to appreciate that, what it is, rather than just to stick my finger on the B flat and play it. It's much more, it gives much more depth to my performance if I can understand that. It also would be fascinating for me if I have appreciated that the next phrase is just a variation of the beginning. If I play the first phrase again, the first part of the first phrase, and now the variation. It's lovely, he flowers it up a little bit. Then something new. An interrupted cadence. We find that in the theory books. Usually it's not very interesting. Okay, so what? An interrupted cadence. What's the effect of it here? Maybe it introduces a little question mark, a moment of darkness. Something expressive anyway, and then a whopping great E flat, which if we look at it is just a chromatic upper neighbour to the D of chord 4. You see what he's doing there? He's going above the D and then below the D to the D. So he's decorating the D. And then the cadence into the home key, a perfect cadence. Now we've got our bridge passage, a kind of no man's land. So that idea we've already had before, haven't we? It's a variation of the very opening. We had it in bar 5. Now he's running with it here. A little bit of minor flavour there. Two ideas, this idea, and then... Now if you're looking at that closely, you might notice the appoggiatura decorated. Perhaps that's come from, you know, maybe. Another appoggiatura. Now that F sharp in the bass, it's known as a dominant preparation or a secondary dominant. It helps us to establish the dominant key of C by going one notch further along to the right in the circle of fifths. If you think of your circle of fifths, you've got F and then C and then G in order to slip back neatly into C. Let me just show you that. Now, I don't think I'd do too much with it. I'm not going to shine a torch on that F sharp, but I would want to notice it. Here's my appoggiatura. And another appoggiatura. Now my second subject in the in the dominant key of C, repeated. What's that? Another interrupted cadence, but this is a bit more dramatic. So I might want to make a big thing of that, because actually Haydn could have gone from bar 28 across to, let me show you, you could have just slipped into bar 33 without that. It's not just any old interrupted cadence either, it's flat 6. So a regular interrupted cadence in the key of C would probably be A minor, but A flat major. Now, that understanding of the structure, of the theory, if you will, would lead me in performance to make something of that and maybe use a little pedal, maybe, because there aren't any dynamics, introduce a forte dynamic. And then he slips back in to C major, and then we've got a kind of chattiness to this. Then we've got the same idea here, up here. A little bit of minor. Chromaticism. That's rather expressive. And then off he goes to the cadence into C major. So a lot of my expressive ideas, my how would I call it, performance related ideas, have come from an understanding and an appreciation of the structure of the music. Just that. So if I didn't have that, I'd just be wiggling my fingers around the notes of this piece, and you know, I wouldn't get nearly as much juice out of it. So absolutely study theory is the message here. Now Diana, in the Vals Poético number 6 by Granados, bars 11 to 12 left hand, I'm having problems moving from the dotted crotchet B to the E sharp. We'll look at it in a second. Also moving from the first beat to the second beat in the right hand. I'd be grateful for any tips, please. Okay, well, I've got somewhere here a photograph of this Granados piece. This is this lovely, dreamy, quasi ad libitum piece. Now this is the spot that Diana's talking about. Here. A major. But is it? No, it's not. See, here I'm again thinking of my theory. He's taken us from the key of F sharp minor to the brighter and warmer key of A major. But then immediately he gets there, he casts doubt on that by removing us from A major and taking us back to this. And so on. But let's get to the spot that Diana's talking about. Okay, so in the left hand, we could design a fingering that would help us play in a legato fashion. So if I play my left hand from bar 9 where the phrase starts, I would use 5 and then 2 and then 5 on the F sharp to 3 on that B, that dotted crotchet. Now we would be perfectly entitled and within our rights to just shift across using a little bit of pedal to paper over the cracks there, because I've got a new phrase on the E sharp. But if you wanted to make it more comfortable and safer to play, simply use the thumb on the E sharp. So the fingering I would use from the B would be a 3 on the B, and then 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 2, 1. So I can then make that completely legato. Okay, now in the right hand, I would need to play a 2 and a 1 on the first crotchet of bar 11. And then I would suggest either going to a 5-4 or probably more comfortably 5-3. So I have to make a lift, right? I can't join this to there. I wouldn't even try by hand, even if I could join the thumb to the 5. It's not very pianistic to do that. Just shift across and use a little pedal. So now if I put that hands together in the ways that I've suggested without any pedal, which would sound terrible, but let me just show you. I'm going to absolutely need my pedal for those connections. So let me now add my pedal. 1 whole bar, and now change here, change, 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 change on the crotchets. 1 whole bar. Now I would do this in a whole bar, and that in a whole bar, but change there. So I think if you follow those suggestions, Diana, it should be job done, right? Getting from there to there, it's not a huge distance. Just notice that you're playing the same notes here as you did down there, B and a D. It's exactly the same. And just use your eyes to gauge the journey. Right, now let's come back to the... Right, Christina has a question. She says, I have arthritis in my thumbs. I'm sorry to hear that. That's not happy. And I try to find ways not to do thumbs under as much as possible. But I really struggle with finding a good technique. When I attend piano concerts, I can hardly see the pianist using thumbs under. Ordinary scales and arpeggios will do as examples for a body-friendly way to play. Well, I like the way you say body-friendly there, Christina. I think it's very important that everything we do at the piano is body-friendly. Now, the thumb under technique is a very traditional way of moving at the keyboard and what it involves, and I can show you probably more. Well, let me show you on the keyboard. I'll use my left hand. Should be able to see better. So if I'm playing a scale of, let's say, A major, the thumb under approach means that I'd start to move my thumb gradually under my hand, but that would need to be in conjunction with an arm movement that took me. Now that's no problem because I'm not causing any tension in my hand. There's no tightening up because I'm only moving just to my third finger. Now if I didn't move my arm and I just did that shift with the thumb, that's another story. That's already problematic. But if I'm traveling with my arm, that's not especially problematic, but I will return to this because there are other ways of doing this. Now when I get to my next block, I've got to put my thumb, if I were to keep my arm still, and here's where the problem starts, I've got to put my thumb underneath my fourth finger. But if I'm gradually moving my thumb in conjunction with that flowing arm, I really don't have so much of an issue with that. What I can do is to turbocharge my thumb with a little rotational movement. Which again feels very comfortable, but it does depend on the arm having travelled. It's really important. And the thumb going under gradually. So that's if you're going to use a thumb under. Let me go to an arpeggio now, because here we've got a slightly different situation. In an arpeggio, the thumb's got to move from the key note, well in the case of A major anyway, to the next key note. And again, if I've got a travelling arm, for my hand, that's no problem whatsoever. I've got a large hand. That doesn't cause me any tension. But so the thumb under is a viable way of moving depending on the circumstance and depending on the individual hand. However, the thumb over, sometimes known as thumb over, or the arm shift, if you want to call it something different, that is where we, instead of putting the thumb under, we throw the arm onto the next thumb with a shift across. So I'm not attempting to put my thumb under the hand too far, but I would want to move my thumb toward my hand. I wouldn't want to keep it out like this. So now if I do that in slow motion, you would be aware of a little gap there that gets covered over when I'm doing two things. First of all, when I play a bit quicker. Also, when I play a little firmer on my third finger. So I don't want a floppy third finger, because then I would be aware of a gap. I don't think you hear too much of a gap there, do you? But I'm also doing one other thing. As I shift my arm, I'm adding a little rotation. I'll do it slowly on the back of my arm for you so you can see it clearly. Do you see the thumb's coming in? It's not going under, but it's coming in toward the hand. And then when I'm ready to quit the third finger, and I'm doing this in slow-mo for you, there's a little rotation there that, when it's fast, feels like a kind of elasticated, you know, when you ping an elastic band or a rubber band off your finger, there's that kind of kapow feeling. And I don't think there you're aware of any gap in the sound. If you want to develop that skill, you can practice what I call this target practice. Because what I'm going to do is to deliberately land on different notes with my thumb. I could use the chromatics if I wanted. See, you're not aware of a gap there because my third finger is firm and my release is very springy. So that's the thumb over technique compared to the thumb under technique. I think you'll probably find that most pianists use both depending on the circumstance. So I hope that helps you. David is learning the Ravel Sonatine because he finds it fascinating. Well, yes, it is fascinating. I thought it would be fairly straightforward, but the opening is really taxing me. I cannot seem to figure out which hand should be over and which under. I've watched some videos on YouTube and find a few different approaches. If you could please help, I would be very grateful. Okay, well, I'll certainly do my best. By the way, we do have on the Online Academy my own edition of this very piece, which does, if you're a subscriber, David, which you would be, you will find it in your library. So do check that. I go through the piece with a fine-tooth comb, looking at every single little corner, and there's little QR codes that you can scan with your phone for demonstrations and footnotes and all sorts of great stuff that will help you in your sonatine journey. So I can show you what I would recommend doing at the beginning. So what we've got here, for me, now I have to think about it. It's kind of automated. intricate, this music. It's a little bit like a kind of clockwork automaton thing. It's extremely beautiful, but it's objective. It's not subjective. Don't do anything sort of romantic with it. Don't do that. It's absolutely to be played in time, to be played. You appreciate its beauty from a distance. You don't get too involved in it when you play. So I find at the beginning that my right thumb is underneath my left. So I'm like this. And now I'm going to a second finger on this G sharp, and I want my wrist to be high. So let me do that again. My right thumb is underneath my left thumb. It still is until here. Still is, by the way, but my left second finger is going to force me to be high. Same idea, the left hand above. Now what I do in this next beat is I let the right hand, second finger, play the A, and in that moment I'm able to swing my left hand underneath and then come back over again here. Second finger is going to take that A over again. I know you didn't ask about this, but I wouldn't be too legato here in the hand. Let the pedal do the job. That's awkward for a lot of people. Not too connected in the hand. And Ravel indicates a rallentando at that moment, and then an art tempo. So as is typical with French music, we mustn't really do extra rubatos other than what's printed in the score. So that's the practice clinic for this month. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful to you. Do keep sending me your questions if you're Online Academy subscribers. If you're not an Online Academy subscriber and you're watching this on YouTube, check the description below, you know, after you've liked and subscribed and all that, and you'll find the link to show you how to become a subscriber. I will catch you again next month. Thanks so much for watching.